this past year I have painted more than I ever have in my entire life. Hi, we are back again to do another silly little ASMR video. This one, I thought it might be fun if we take a little trip down memory lane and take a look at some of my paintings that I've done the last couple months, all of the different textures and brush strokes, and kind of explored some of the different techniques I've used to make my paintings on Livestream. I want to start with this one here. This one is actually one of my most favorite paintings that I've made in quite a while, so it holds a very special place in my heart. This painting is super special to me because it's not generally a color palette that I would normally work in. I tend to go for softer colors that are a little bit, how do I put this? More traditional in the sense where I love to paint in blues, pinks, and purples. And we'll definitely be seeing lots of paintings in blues, pinks, and purples today. But I wanted to start here because I did a few things with this painting that are new to me and I think are going to become staples in my paintings in the future. A lot of the paintings, especially some of the ones that I'm going to show you next, are a lot more ordered, a lot more neat, where with this painting I tried to make it look purposefully messy, and I think we were able to achieve it in the right sense. Next up, we have an older creation of mine. This painting I probably made back in, I want to say, February of March of 2023. I can see from my perspective that I was still really exploring how I wanted to develop my art. That's not a real sentence. I can see from my perspective how I was starting to develop my style in abstract. I feel like I was still wandering around in the dark a little bit with this painting, but it does have a lot of fun textures, so I do want to show you those because I feel like we might get some good ASMR sounds out of it. this was one of the first paintings that I used a 3D texture on. The 3D texture that I used is a painting medium that gives your paint a lot more structure. Acrylic paint will often dry quite flat, where when you add a medium into it, it will give it a little bit more structure and allow it to hold its shape a little bit better. I also use different stamps and stencils in this piece. I still use stamps and stencils in my work, but I do it in more of a layered effect and with not as many defined lines. So you can see how over the last year my painting style has started to develop as I continue to try new things, sometimes make things that are good and we have paintings that we keep, and sometimes making a lot of mistakes and having to start completely over. Either is okay. Either is okay. It's all about just having fun and enjoying the painting as we do it. Now, going back to the point of my art still using different stamps, I do use stamps in this painting as well, but they're more layered behind other textures and colors where they're not so defined in the final painting. It just feels a little less perfect, a little more abstract, a little more chaotic, which I do enjoy. Definitely tell that I love circles. It's no surprise, especially if you've ever watched my live streams where I create these paintings. We do a lot of circles. It's just something that I enjoy to do. I do large circles and small circles and circles that are a little bit imperfect and definitely a little bit misshapen. On this painting, I decided to do a bunch of tiny little dots spreading across a large surface area. So when you look at the painting from a distance, it creates more of an overlay effect, but when you come in closer, you can start to see a lot of the smaller details as well. There is one area that I used a sponge on. Sponges are some of my favorite tools. They look a little crusty and musty and dusty because they are well loved, but they're really great for making all sorts of different textures, and all of the sides are varying. When you dip them in water, they get a lot softer and a lot bigger and a lot easier to work with. Next up, we have another painting that I actually just finished the other day. Some of you were saying in the live stream chat that it reminds you of little grapes, and it's actually one of your favorite paintings that you've ever seen me create. I definitely love the color purple. It's my favorite color, and you'll see me use it a lot, but very rarely do I do something so monochromatic, but I do like how this one turned out. Instead of just doing circles, we did opt for doing little black lines in the same kind of technique I talked about with the last painting, where we do small marks and just a lot of them to make it a grander effect. The black contrasts nicely to all of the light washed out colors on this painting as well, and that's something I'm trying to focus more on with my art, is having that balance of color and contrast and different values and making it all marry together and still feel like somehow it belongs. I use all sorts of different tools when it comes to making my paintings, but some of my favorite brushes are these round dome brushes. I'm not sure if that's their actual scientific name, but it's what I like to call them. So that's what we're going to call them today. I have lots of different sizes of these brushes, but this big over the top one might be one of my favorites. I try my best to take good care of my brushes, so please don't judge me. I'm trying my best. This painting is really special to me because it is one of the first paintings that we decided to do something a little bit different and work with a medium that I don't use very often, and that's gold leaf. I very rarely in the past have ever used gold leaf in my paintings because I like to turn a lot of them into prints, and sometimes gold leaf doesn't always photograph the best, but you guys in the chat convinced me that this is exactly what this painting needed, and I'm very glad I listened because I love it so much. Let me show you. We also have the introduction of doing what you guys like to call my loop-de-loops, and I like to look at it as it's the bird's eye view of looking down at a map and seeing all of the different elevations of an area, and it's these lines going up the side. I just did them with my favorite brand of paint markers, the Molotow markers, and I love the different curved lines and shapes and different weight of the line, and then layered behind everything else. I think it looks really neat. And then I showed you a painting that was a little bit older so we could see the evolution of my style. Then we went into paintings that are also very near and dear to my heart and are newer as well. To end things off, I thought we would bring it back to something that has been with me for quite a few months. This painting does look very similar to the first painting I showed you. We were exploring different mediums and seeing different textures and techniques where we can add things to our paint to try and achieve a different effect. One of the mediums I used on this painting on the very top layer is called a string gel medium. It makes your paint almost like silly string, where you can kind of just flick it over the surface of the painting and it leaves these long strings of paint behind. This painting may not be my favorite. I think it is fun to see just how far we've come with making abstract art this past year. I've been painting abstract since 2016, but this past year I have painted more than I ever have in my entire life, and it's all been on Livestream with you guys. I've had so much fun. I've learned a lot, and I'm so excited to keep exploring my passion and seeing where things will go from here.